kill the engine, and step away from the gate. The voice came through a handheld speaker before my truck had fully stopped. Red and blue security lights flashed across the cattle fence, washing the mesquite trees in alternating color. Diesel exhaust drifted through the open window. Somewhere beyond the gate, a drilling rig hammered steel into earth with a steady metallic thud. I rested both hands on the steering wheel and looked at the road I had driven since I was 16. Except it was no longer open. Two white Silver Mesa security trucks sat sideways across the entrance to Red Creek Ranch. A fresh chain ran through the gate posts. Yellow survey stakes lined the shoulder, each one topped with fluorescent ribbon that snapped in the West Texas wind. Beyond them, men in orange vests were unloading soil testing equipment beside a black pickup marked Blackridge Petroleum. I climbed out slowly. My boots hit gravel still cool from the night. The air smelled like dust, creosote, and hydraulic fluid. "This is private property," I said. The security guard lowered the speaker. He looked young enough to still be nervous about the uniform. "Not anymore, Mr. Mercer." A white Range Rover rolled up behind him. Vanessa Whitmore stepped out wearing cream-colored slacks and boots that had never touched manure. Her silver blonde hair stayed perfectly still despite the wind. She carried a red leather folder under one arm and smiled like she had been waiting all morning to use it. "Caleb," she said, "I was hoping we could avoid a scene. You chained my ranch gate. We secured HOA property." She opened the folder and handed me a certified copy of a foreclosure deed. The paper was thick. Official seals. County recording stamp. 10 lines of dense legal description. Vanessa watched my face instead of the document. "Silver Mesa acquired the Mercer tract at foreclosure," she said. "Your family ignored assessments for 18 months. We followed the law." Behind her, a worker drove another stake into the ground. 3 clean hammer blows. I read the description once. Then again. Section 12. Northeast quarter. Beginning at an iron rod beside County Road 214. Following the access lane west. I had spent 20 years reading pipeline plats and right-of-way surveys. Legal descriptions were not decoration to me. They were coordinates. Boundaries. Promises written in distance and direction. This deed did not describe Red Creek Ranch. It described the 10-acre entrance tract. Nothing more. I folded the paper along its existing crease. "You bought the road parcel," I said. Vanessa's smile tightened. "We acquired the ranch. You acquired 10 acres. We acquired access, control, and all associated property rights." She gestured toward the Blackridge trucks. "The board's attorneys have reviewed everything." A deputy's cruiser turned onto the county road behind me. That was Vanessa's next move. Not an argument. A uniform. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Oil changes things, Caleb. Silver Mesa has already signed a lease covering all 640 acres. Once production begins, this community will never pay dues again." The drilling hammer stopped. For half a second, the silence felt heavier than the noise. 640 acres. My grandfather Walter had bought every one of them in 1964. My father had buried 2 horses near the South Windmill. My sister and I had scattered his ashes above the dry creek bed. Somewhere behind that locked gate, 83 head of cattle were waiting for feed. Vanessa spoke about the place like it was a lottery ticket she had found in a parking lot. I pulled out my phone and began taking pictures. The chain, the security trucks, the Blackridge markers, the license plates. Vanessa raised one hand. "You do not have permission to photograph operations on HOA land." I kept shooting. "You should tell your survey crew to stop at the 10-acre line. They're working from our map." "Then your map is wrong." Her face changed at that. Only slightly. The smile remained, but her fingers tightened around the red folder. The deputy parked and approached us, one hand resting near his belt. Vanessa lifted her voice for his benefit. "This man has been informed that he no longer owns the property, and he refuses to leave." I looked past her toward the ranch road. A gust of wind turned one of the survey ribbons inside out. Beneath the bright orange flag, someone had painted a small black symbol on the stake. A pump jack. The same symbol my grandfather had carved into the lid of his steel deed box. Walter used to tap that box with one scarred finger and say, "Never confuse the dirt with what sleeps beneath it." I had been 12 the first time he said it. Vanessa clearly had never heard it. The deputy stopped beside me. "Mr. Mercer, I need you to move your vehicle off the entrance." Behind him, another Blackridge truck arrived carrying rolls of temporary fencing. Vanessa stepped aside and pointed toward the county road. You can contest it later, she said. Today you leave. I looked at the deed in my hand, then at the chain across my family's gate. They had taken 10 acres. Now they were using those 10 acres to claim everything. And before the sun cleared the horizon, they were already preparing to drill. I moved my truck onto the county shoulder and watched Vanessa's crew close the gate behind me. The chain snapped tight against the steel post. That sound followed me all the way to the West Service track. Calling it a road was generous. It was a pale scar through the mesquite, built years ago for pipeline inspections and dry weather emergencies. My tires sank into loose caliche as I crawled toward the south pasture. By the time I reached the cattle pens, dust coated my tongue and the temperature gauge was already climbing. The herd crowded the fence when they heard my engine. They were not starving. Not yet. But the feed truck scheduled for Thursday could not make that track if the weather turned. One hard West Texas storm would turn the low crossing into brown soup. I photographed the ruts, marked the weak culvert with orange paint, and called the driver. Use the main entrance, he said. That's what we've always done. Not anymore. The words tasted worse the second time. Red Creek had belonged to my family since my grandfather Walter bought all 640 acres in 1964. He raised cattle when beef prices collapsed, leased grazing during drought years, and refused 3 developers who wanted to carve the place into identical half-acre lots. My father, Daniel, was more practical. In 2008, Silver Mesa offered to pave the entrance and extend a municipal water line. Dad agreed to place 10 acres, the road, gate, and utility strip under a limited covenant. He wanted reliable access for livestock trailers and an emergency water connection. Only 10 acres. He made me walk the boundary with him before he signed. Read the description, not the sales pitch, he had said. That afternoon, I drove to the ranch office and pulled every file I could find. The room still smelled like Dad's coffee and saddle soap. His work gloves sat on the windowsill, fingers curled inward as if he had just taken them off. I forced myself past them and opened the steel cabinet. Tax receipts, surveys, waterline easements, Silver Mesa correspondence. The assessment notices stopped 18 months earlier. Not because the account had been settled, because the mailing address changed. The older notices came to the ranch office. The newer foreclosure documents had been sent to a post office box in Odessa that neither Rebecca nor I had ever used. I copied every envelope. At 4:17, a certified notice arrived by courier. Silver Mesa was imposing a daily access fee for commercial agricultural use of HOA-controlled roads. $250 per vehicle. Unauthorized livestock transport would be reported as trespass. Contractors entering without written board approval could be removed. Vanessa had signed it that morning. She was not just blocking me. She was building a paper wall around the ranch. I called Rebecca and asked her to check Dad's estate inventory. She went quiet when I mentioned the address change. There was a fireproof document case, she said. Gray metal. Dad kept probate papers separate from the ranch files. Where is it? I thought it was in his bank box. I wrote that down beside the Odessa address. Then I spread the covenant map across Dad's desk and compared it with the foreclosure deed. The 10-acre description matched. The assessment account number did not. The foreclosure paperwork listed a second parcel code, one assigned to the entire ranch. Someone had attached 630 acres to a 10-acre debt. Outside, tires crunched across the yard. A silver SUV stopped beside the office. A man in a Black Ridge vest stepped out carrying an inspection clipboard and a map stamped with the Silver Mesa logo. Vanessa had not made one exaggerated claim at the gate. She had already distributed it as fact. The Black Ridge man raised one hand before I reached the porch. Caleb Mercer? That depends on what your map says. He glanced down at the clipboard. Mid-40s. Sunburned neck. Dust already settling into the seams of his work boots. Travis Lang. Field Access Coordinator. He turned the map toward me. We're scheduled to inspect the proposed pad and road corridor. The Silver Mesa logo sat in the lower corner. A thick red outline swallowed the entire ranch. I set my phone to record and kept it at my side. Who gave you permission to enter the 630 acres west of the entrance tract? His expression tightened. Silver Mesa provided surface authorization. For 10 acres. They represented full control. I asked him to show me the legal description attached to his work order. He hesitated, then flipped through the packet. The authorization page listed the same parcel number I had found on the foreclosure documents, the code for the entire ranch. But the deed reference beneath it was recorded under the 10-acre entrance tract. 2 identifiers. 1 signature. No explanation. I photographed each page without touching them. Travis watched me carefully. Our title department handles ownership. Then your title department should see this. I laid Dad's covenant survey across the hood of my truck. Years of pipeline work had taught me to ignore colored lines and find the controlling points. Iron rods, section corners, bearings, distances. The HOA map showed the northern boundary extending from County Road 214 to the Dry Creek. Dad's survey stopped 1,100 feet earlier. I paced to the nearest marker with a handheld GPS from the ranch office. The Blackridge stake stood almost half a mile beyond the covenant tract, beside the pasture where we kept the younger heifers. Travis followed but stayed outside the fence. That stake came from our preliminary coordinates, he said. Coordinates supplied by Vanessa? By Silver Mesa. I photographed the stake, the GPS screen, the fence line, and the nearest survey monument. Then I wrote the time, weather, and position in my field notebook. Digital files could disappear. Paper made people work harder. His radio hissed. A woman's voice came through, sharp and controlled. Travis, stop discussing title matters. Complete the inspection or withdraw. He turned away, but not before I heard the next sentence. Whitmore says Mercer has no standing. Vanessa knew I was checking the map. That meant someone had called her before Travis reached my office, or she had been monitoring the visit from the start. He closed the packet. I'm suspending the field inspection until our land department reviews this. That would be smart. His jaw shifted. You should understand, Mr. Mercer, Blackridge doesn't walk away from promising acreage because neighbors disagree. This isn't a neighbor disagreement. I tapped the parcel number. It's a chain of title problem. He drove off 10 minutes later, leaving twin tracks in the dust. I scanned my photographs, saved copies to 2 drives, and emailed a timestamped set to Rebecca. Then I called the county appraisal office and read both parcel codes aloud. The clerk confirmed what the documents already suggested. The 10-acre road tract had 1 ownership history. The remaining ranch had another. But when I asked who requested that the full ranch parcel code be added to the foreclosure file, her keyboard went quiet. That amendment wasn't entered by our office, she said. Then whose filing was it? I can't tell from this screen. You'll need the original instrument packet. Where do I get that? County Records Archive. Ask for the scanned foreclosure submission, not the public index. I looked at the pump jack symbol I had copied from the stake. Someone had not merely misunderstood the boundary. They had inserted the entire ranch into paperwork built around 10 acres. And the original packet would show me who. The county archive opened at 8. By 8:12, Vanessa knew I was there. I had just signed the request slip for the original foreclosure packet when my phone began vibrating across the records counter. 3 calls from the ranch office. 2 from Rebecca. 1 from an unknown number. Then a text from my feed supplier. Silver Mesa Security turned US around. They say your access is revoked. I photographed the request slip before handing it to the clerk. Please don't release the file to anyone else until I've reviewed it. She looked over her glasses. It's a public record, Mr. Mercer. I understand. I'm asking you to preserve the packet exactly as it is now. That earned me a longer look. I can note the condition and scan it before handling. Do that. The first pages arrived smelling of dust and warm copier glass. Assessment ledger. Notice affidavit. Foreclosure authorization. The parcel code for the full ranch appeared on a supplemental cover sheet, but the legal description beneath it still covered only the 10-acre road tract. The sheet had been filed 6 days after Blackridge submitted its first exploration inquiry. Not proof, but it was a timeline. I scanned every page, including blank backs and staple holes, then saved the files to an encrypted drive and a cloud folder Rebecca controlled. When I stepped outside, my phone showed 37 new messages. Silver Mesa had sent a neighborhood-wide bulletin titled Fraudulent Claims Threaten Community Energy Agreement. Vanessa wrote that I was harassing contractors, obstructing lawful inspections, and attempting to sabotage revenue that belonged to every homeowner. She claimed my family had abandoned the ranch financially and was now exploiting technical errors to extort the community. By noon, strangers were calling me a thief. One man left a voicemail saying his mother needed the promised dues reduction for medication. Another warned me not to show my face at the Silver Mesa meeting. Vanessa had taken a boundary dispute and turned it into a vote on whether I deserved to keep my own land. Then the notices started. A $5,000 interference penalty. A demand that I remove livestock fencing within 72 hours because it allegedly crossed HOA-controlled property. A temporary ban on agricultural vehicles using the paved entrance. The last one hurt immediately. My veterinarian canceled a scheduled herd inspection after security told her she could be cited for trespass. The feed supplier refused to risk another trip. Clouds were building to the west, dark and low, and the caliche track would not hold a loaded truck after rain. I called Rebecca. Move the mineral and estate files out of the ranch office. You think they'll go inside? I think Vanessa believes the 10 acres give her more authority than they do. We transferred the originals to a bank box that afternoon. I left certified copies in the office and mounted 2 motion cameras facing the file cabinets and the south window. It looked defensive. It was also a record of who entered, when, and what they touched. At 4, Paul Dempsey called from a blocked number. His voice stayed barely above a whisper. I can't be involved, Caleb. You already are. You're the treasurer. I have a family in that subdivision. So do I. Silence. Then he said, Vanessa scheduled an emergency board vote tonight. She wants authority to execute a surface use agreement with Blackridge before you can get into court. Did the board receive a mineral title opinion? I didn't say that. The line went dead. At 6:30, headlights appeared along the county road. Not security trucks this time. A grading convoy. 2 bulldozers, a fuel tanker, and a flatbed carrying steel road mats rolled toward the ranch entrance under a temporary work order signed by Vanessa. Behind them came a process server. He handed me a petition accusing me of interfering with HOA property and requesting an emergency order barring me from the entrance tract. The hearing was set for 9 the next morning. If Vanessa won, Blackridge could begin cutting a drilling road before I finished proving where her 10 acres ended. The judge signed the order at 9:43. I watched the ink dry from 6 feet away. Vanessa sat beside her attorney in a navy suit, hands folded neatly over a yellow legal pad. She did not look at me when the judge ruled that Silver Mesa had shown enough recorded interest in the entrance tract to prevent me from obstructing its authorized contractors until the ownership dispute could be fully heard. The order covered 10 acres. Vanessa treated it like a deed to Texas. By the time I reached Red Creek, the bulldozers were already moving. Diesel smoke rolled across the gate. Steel tracks crushed the gravel my father had spread 1 trailer load at a time. The old cattle guard screamed as a blade ripped it out of the ground and shoved it into the ditch. A Blackridge foreman stood beside the work zone holding a copy of the order in a plastic sleeve. You can observe from the county road, he said. My cattle use that entrance. You'll need to coordinate through Silver Mesa. Behind him, a grader peeled the topsoil from the road shoulder. Dust coated the mesquite in a pale gray skin. Vanessa stood near the security truck speaking to a local television camera. This is a victory for lawful property owners, she said. One individual cannot hold an entire community hostage because he regrets losing land through a legal process. She pointed toward my ranch while the reporter nodded. By noon, the clip was online. Former ranch owner blocks community oil project. The word sat beneath a photograph of me standing behind a barricade. The feed truck came at 1:15. Security turned it away. I tried the west service track with my own flatbed, hauling 20 sacks at a time. Halfway through the low crossing, the rear axle dropped into soft caliche. The tires spun until the air smelled like hot rubber. Rain began before I freed it. Not much, just enough. By 3, the track had become a ribbon of mud. One heifer slipped near the south pen and tore open her flank on a fence brace while the herd crowded toward the empty feed bunks. I called the veterinarian. She would not come without written access clearance. Vanessa denied it. I stood in the rain holding a towel against the animal's side while Rebecca read the denial email over the phone. Blood soaked through the cloth, warm against my palm. For the first time since this started, I wondered whether I had moved too carefully. I had preserved records, measured boundaries, filed objections. Vanessa had brought machines. By sunset, the entrance no longer looked like ours. The cedar gate was gone. The pump jack emblem Walter had welded into the center lay face down beside a trench. Steel road mats stretched toward a scraped rectangle where Blackridge planned to stage equipment. Silver Mesa homeowners gathered behind temporary fencing, taking pictures. Vanessa shook hands as if she had opened a hospital. Then a contractor fastened a new sign to the gatepost. Silver Mesa Energy Access. Authorized personnel only. I photographed it, though my hands were shaking. A deputy delivered another notice. Silver Mesa was claiming $42,000 in legal fees, security costs, and contractor delays. Vanessa had scheduled a board meeting to impose the amount as an additional lien against any Mercer property connected to the disputed parcel. Access, money, reputation, livestock. She had found a way to squeeze all four at once. After dark, I walked the edge of the scraped road with a flashlight, documenting the damage from the county shoulder. Rainwater hissed against hot equipment. That was when I saw the white survey paint. A line crossed the dirt 20 yards behind the original iron boundary rod. The bulldozer tracks continued past it. So did the road mats. I checked the coordinates twice. Vanessa had won an order protecting work on 10 acres. Then, in front of deputies, contractors, cameras, and half her neighborhood, she had ordered the machines onto mine. I knelt beside the iron boundary rod and ran my flashlight over the white paint again. The line was clean, fresh, deliberate. 20 yards beyond it, the bulldozer tracks had chewed through my pasture, flattening bunchgrass and cutting a shallow drainage swale into raw mud. One steel road mat rested entirely outside the 10-acre tract. Another straddled the line like someone had assumed boundaries were suggestions. I set my survey receiver over the rod. The screen blinked, searched for satellites, then settled. I checked the coordinate against Dad's 2008 covenant plat, the foreclosure deed, and the field notes I had made when Blackridge first arrived. Same monument, same bearing, same distance. Vanessa's crew had crossed onto the 630 acres by 61 feet. I measured it twice. Then I called Travis Lang. He answered on the fourth ring. "You're working outside the court order," I said. A pause. Paper moved on his end. "Our crew followed the access map provided by Silver Mesa. That map is wrong. Bring your original field file tomorrow morning. I'm not authorized to share internal documents. Then bring your survey chief and verify the boundary yourself." His voice cooled. "You understand there's an injunction against interference." "I'm not interfering. I'm documenting trespass." That word changed the silence. At sunrise, Travis returned with a survey technician and 2 receivers. I stayed on my side of the fence while they occupied the iron rod, shot the next monument, and compared the result to their digital map. The technician stopped smiling first. Their red access polygon extended beyond the recorded tract because someone had attached the full ranch parcel code to the work order. The same second code I had found in the foreclosure packet. 2 earlier mistakes had become one pattern. The supplemental cover sheet had expanded the foreclosure file on paper. The Silver Mesa map had expanded it on the ground. Travis photographed the road mats and called Marissa Bennett, Blackridge's land manager. I could not hear every word, but I heard enough. Unverified parcel merge. Surface authorization defect. Immediate hold. By 9, the machines were silent. Vanessa arrived 10 minutes later in her Range Rover, stepped into the mud, and demanded to know why nobody was working. Travis handed her a stop work notice. She read it, looked at me, then smiled. "This is temporary," she said. "The board will correct the mapping issue." "It isn't a mapping issue. You lost in court yesterday, Caleb. On 10 acres. Her eyes flicked toward the iron rod. "Only once. That was enough." I spent the rest of the morning building the record she had created for me. I photographed each track from 4 angles, recorded GPS coordinates, collected the contractor sign-in sheet from the deputy's incident file, and downloaded footage from the cameras Rebecca and I had installed at the ranch office. One camera had caught Vanessa entering after midnight with a Silver Mesa contractor. They never touched the file cabinets. They photographed the covenant map on Dad's wall. By dawn, their machines had crossed the exact boundary shown on it. I copied the footage to 3 drives. Rebecca placed one in the bank box. I sent another to Grant Holloway with the archive scans, the parcel code discrepancy, Travis's stop work notice, and my survey log. Then I called Paul Dempsey. "I need the agenda for tonight's emergency board meeting." "I told you I can't help." "You don't have to help me. Just make sure Vanessa discusses the Blackridge agreement on the record." He breathed slowly into the phone. "What are you planning?" "Nothing she hasn't already earned." At 4:30, Grant filed an amended motion requesting a boundary inspection, preservation of Silver Mesa's mapping records, and production of every communication involving the second parcel code. At 4:32, I emailed Vanessa a certified notice that I would attend the board meeting. Not to argue, to let her explain the map herself. The board meeting started at 7, and Vanessa made sure my chair faced the room. Every seat in the Silver Mesa clubhouse was filled. Homeowners lined the back wall beneath framed photographs of ribbon cuttings and holiday parades. A local reporter stood near the exit with her camera already recording. Vanessa sat beneath the HOA seal, the red leather folder from the ranch gate positioned beside her microphone. For transparency, she said, this session will be entered into the official minutes. Paul Dempsey looked down at his hands. I placed my phone on the table, screen up, and started a second recording. Grant sat beside me with the amended motion in a closed file. Rebecca was across town at the bank, following the safe deposit entry from Dad's estate inventory. That was the risk. If the gray fireproof case contained nothing useful, I would be sitting in front of 200 angry homeowners with a damaged ranch, a growing legal bill, and no clean way to stop Vanessa from correcting her map and starting again. She began with photographs of the silent bulldozers. Mr. Mercer used technical boundary claims to halt a project that belongs to this community. Murmurs rolled through the room. Vanessa displayed the Silver Mesa access map on a screen. The same red polygon covered all 640 acres. The pump jack symbol sat over my south pasture like a brand. I raised my hand. Who approved that map? Our consultants prepared it. That wasn't my question. Her smile hardened. The board approved it. Before or after Blackridge questioned the surface boundary? The room went quiet enough to hear the air conditioner click. Vanessa leaned toward the microphone. Blackridge identified a minor coordinate discrepancy. Silver Mesa's ownership remains unchanged. I slid a certified copy of the 10-acre deed across the table. Read the acreage into the minutes. Her attorney whispered to her. Vanessa ignored him. We are not turning this meeting into your private deposition. Then correct the map. She looked toward the homeowners. That was the moment she could have stopped. Suspended the agreement. Ordered a title review. Admitted the work had crossed a disputed line. Instead, she opened the red folder. I move that the board ratify the existing Blackridge surface use agreement, confirm Silver Mesa's ownership and control of the entire Mercer tract, and authorize immediate correction of any field markers necessary to reflect that ownership. Paul's head came up. Grant did not move, but his pen touched the paper. A board member named Susan Keller hesitated. Entire tract meaning the full ranch. Yes, Vanessa said. All 640 acres. Vanessa looked directly at me. All 640. Susan asked whether the motion included the mineral lease. It includes every associated surface and subsurface right acquired through foreclosure. There it was. Not an email someone could blame on staff. Not a colored map someone could call preliminary. A statement made voluntarily into the official microphone after she had been shown the deed and warned about the boundary. Paul asked for a roll call vote. Vanessa voted first. Yes. 3 others followed. Susan voted no. Paul abstained. The motion passed 4-1. Vanessa signed the resolution while the board secretary stamped the time across the bottom. The reporter's camera caught the pen touching paper. My phone vibrated once. Rebecca had sent a photograph from inside the bank vault. A gray metal case sat open beneath fluorescent light. On top was a certified probate document labeled Exhibit C, Mineral and Executive Rights Trust. I locked the screen before Vanessa could see it. She pushed the signed resolution toward her attorney. Send that to Blackridge tonight, she said. Work resumes at dawn. Grant quietly collected the certified copy issued by the board secretary. Vanessa believed she had just cornered me with a recorded vote. What she had actually done was claim, sign for, and order work on rights she had been warned she might not own. And now she could never say she misunderstood. Vanessa's resolution reached Blackridge at 7:46 p.m. At 7:52, Marissa Bennett replied to everyone on the chain. Surface and Mineral Authority remains unverified. No operations authorized. Vanessa read the message aloud, then laughed into the microphone. This is a routine title delay, she said. Blackridge will correct it once our attorneys provide the foreclosure records. I stood. No, I said. They won't. The room shifted toward me. Rebecca entered through the rear doors carrying Dad's gray fireproof case. Grant followed her to the board table and placed 3 certified document packets in front of the secretary, the reporter, and Blackridge's title counsel, who had joined by video after receiving our notice. Vanessa stared at the case. I opened with the 10-acre deed. This is what Silver Mesa foreclosed on. The board secretary projected the legal description onto the screen. 10 acres. Road, gate, utility strip. The same iron rod. The same measurements Dad had made me walk in 2008. Then I displayed the county appraisal records. 2 parcel histories appeared side by side. One for the entrance tract, one for the remaining 630 acres still titled to Rebecca and me. The room stopped murmuring. Vanessa leaned toward her attorney. That doesn't address the oil. You're right, I said. Rebecca opened the metal case. The hinges gave a dry squeal I remembered from my father's office. Inside lay the probate index we had found, Daniel's succession papers, and the document Vanessa never knew existed. Exhibit C. Grant handed the certified copy to Blackridge's title counsel. The attorney read silently for almost a minute. Vanessa filled the silence. An old family document cannot override a lawful foreclosure. Blackridge's counsel looked up from the screen. It doesn't have to. He identified the recording numbers one at a time. Walter Mercer had severed and reserved the oil, gas, and mineral estate years before Daniel signed the limited HOA covenant. The trust transferred those rights to Daniel's children. The succession papers named Rebecca and me as the current beneficiaries with executive leasing authority. Surface and minerals had separated decades before Silver Mesa existed. The foreclosure could not transfer what the entrance tract never owned. Vanessa's face lost color. She pointed at the screen. We control the land. They cannot drill without us. Marissa Bennett joined the call. Silver Mesa controls no verified surface beyond 10 acres, she said. And your board authorized work 61 feet outside that boundary after receiving a stop work notice. I displayed the survey log, the iron rod coordinates, the white paint, the GPS readings, the contractor's sign-in sheet. Then the ranch office footage showed Vanessa entering after midnight and photographing Dad's covenant map before the machines crossed the exact line marked on it. Her attorney stopped whispering. Vanessa tried one last turn. Mr. Mercer manipulated this process to damage the community. Paul Dempsey stood. His chair scraped hard across the floor. He handed the secretary a printed email from Blackridge warning that Silver Mesa had not proven mineral ownership. The timestamp was 3 days before Vanessa signed the resolution. She told us the title was clean, he said. Vanessa looked at him as if betrayal were something only other people could commit. Grant asked the secretary to read the motion Vanessa had signed less than an hour earlier. Full ownership. All 640 acres. Every associated subsurface right. The words sounded different now. Not confident. Documented. Blackridge's counsel announced the HOA lease was suspended, all payments frozen, and the matter referred to the company's Fraud and Compliance Division. Susan Keller moved to remove Vanessa's signing authority pending an independent audit. This time, the vote was not close. 6 hands rose. Paul's was one of them. The board secretary collected the red leather folder, the HOA seal, and Vanessa's access card. Then she stamped the resolution across the top. Authority suspended, effective immediately. The suspension took effect before Vanessa reached the clubhouse door. Blackridge canceled every field authorization tied to her signature. The grading crew received a shutdown order before dawn, and the steel road mats stayed exactly where they were until a court-appointed surveyor could document the damage. 3 days later, that surveyor stood beside the original iron rod with my coordinates, Dad's 2008 plat, and the county's certified parcel maps spread across the hood of his truck. His finding was simple. Silver Mesa's foreclosure deed covered 10 acres. The bulldozers had crossed 61 feet onto the other 630. The independent audit found the rest. Vanessa had received Blackridge's title objection, hidden it from the board, redirected assessment notices to the Odessa post office box, and authorized the full ranch parcel code to be added to the foreclosure submission after learning oil companies were studying the area. Paul had questioned the accounting, but he had signed 2 payment reports after Vanessa pressured him. He resigned as treasurer and cooperated with the audit. The state HOA regulator fined him for the reporting failures, but the board did not pursue him personally. Vanessa received no such protection. Silver Mesa's insurer covered the board's legitimate legal expenses, then denied coverage for losses tied to intentional misrepresentation. The State Real Estate Commission opened disciplinary proceedings against her broker license. Blackridge referred the false lease and concealed title objection to county investigators. She was not dragged away in handcuffs. Real consequences moved more quietly than that. They arrived as certified envelopes, frozen accounts, sworn interviews, and bills with her name printed at the top. The foreclosure case settled 2 months later. The court found that the original road assessments were valid. Rebecca and I paid them, along with reasonable interest. But the sale itself was set aside because the notices had been diverted and the filing had materially misrepresented the property attached to the debt. The 10-acre entrance tract came back to us. So did the gate. Silver Mesa canceled the $42,000 lien, refunded the access penalties, and paid for the damaged drainage swale, fencing, and pasture. The veterinarian's bill for the injured heifer went into the settlement too. The clubhouse contract died before the first foundation was poured. Homeowners who had cheered Vanessa's oil promise were angry, but not at me anymore. At the next meeting, they elected Susan Keller president and required independent title review for every future property transaction. Then Blackridge returned. This time, Marissa Bennett came without security trucks or an HOA map. She brought Grant, Ethan Cole, a surface engineer, and a lease bearing the correct names. Caleb Mercer, Rebecca Mercer Shaw. We negotiated every road, fence, water test, noise limit, livestock crossing, restoration bond, and payment schedule. The drilling pad went near the entrance, on ground we approved. No bulldozers crossed the south pasture. No contractor moved a boundary marker. The well turned horizontal beneath the ranch, reaching the formation without carving Red Creek into pieces. On the morning the restored gate was rehung, I stood where Vanessa had first ordered me off my own land. The new chain slid through the steel post with a low metallic scrape. Not locked against me, locked by me. Rebecca brought Walter's old pump jack emblem from the barn. The bulldozer had bent one corner, but the weld still held. We bolted it back into the center of the gate. Behind us, cattle moved toward fresh feed. Their hooves pressed softly into the gravel. Far beyond the pasture, the drilling equipment hummed within the limits we had written into the agreement. Silver Mesa had claimed my ranch because oil was found, but the surface beyond those 10 acres had remained ours. And what slept beneath all 640 had never belonged to them at all. I closed the gate and watched the pump jack emblem catch the first light of morning.